Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Mike Brickner, and I am the Executive Director of the ACLU of Delaware. I do want to apologize for the slight technical delay. It wouldn't be a Zoom conference call if we didn't have some sort of technical issue, but we're so glad that you're here with us today to talk about this very important issue. I'm joined here by experts in civil rights and policing policy and people who have been directly impacted by police practices here in the state of Delaware. I want to set the stage because today is a somber day. We yesterday had the conviction of Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd, and that was one step towards accountability, at least for the family of George Floyd. And of course, we are glad that there was the conviction and that that was a step towards accountability. But now we need to focus on justice and ensuring that we don't have more George Floyds or Lyman Moseses or Jeremy McDowells or Tamir Rices or Trayvon Martins or Michael Browns, Dante Wrights, Breonna Taylors, Ma'Khia Bryants, and the list goes on and on. We have to have fundamental structural change in the way we do policing here in Delaware and across the country. And it's past time for reform. Last year, after the killing of George Floyd, our legislature got together and created the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force. And now for nearly a year, they have been studying these issues here in Delaware, hearing from community experts, hearing from policing experts about what is needed here in the state. But we can't wait for reform any longer. Time is running out for there to be change in the legislative session in 2021, and we need changes now. Particularly, our coalition is most concerned about the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, which is a broad set of laws here in the state of Delaware, and 15 states across the country have Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, but they allow for there to be high levels of secrecy and keep the community from being able to properly oversee police misconduct issues. And so that Leobor is the root of what needs to be addressed here in the state of Delaware. And so we are forging a new coalition of civil rights and social justice advocates to call for police accountability now. And we will be pushing the legislature to make these changes. We will be educating the community and organizing the community, and we will be doing all we can to get these changes to the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights in 2021. In addition, we're also concerned about other police reform issues such as use of force, the use of body-worn cameras, and you're going to be hearing more about our concerns and what we're hoping for out of the legislature here today. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hanif Salam. Hanif is the Smart Justice Manager for the ACLU of Delaware. He is one of the foremost experts on policing and smart justice here in the state of Delaware. And so Hanif's going to tell you a little bit more about the campaign and the work that we're going to be doing. Go ahead, Hanif.
Good afternoon, and I'd like thank everybody who was able to join us this afternoon and who is watching live. As Mike said, my name is Hanif Salam, campaign manager for the Smart Justice Campaign here in Delaware. And I'm just here to say that we need Delaware police accountability, and we need it now. It's been almost a year since our Delaware Black Caucus held a press conference and let us know that they heard the people cry through protests and rallies, and that they were anxious and ambitious to do something. And while I could respect a process and due diligence and whatever you do, other states around us like New Jersey have passed use of force law, right? Maryland has amended their policing in ways that makes it more transparent and accountable. And these are states right around us who have moved, and Delaware has yet to move. So while Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict in the George Floyd case was an important step in police accountability, I can't call that justice as the Smart Justice campaign manager in Delaware. We won't see justice until all police are held accountable for their misconducts. And the data of policing is transparent when it comes to police disciplinary records, when it comes to stops and what areas they're making stops, and what is the race, age, and reason for the stop, and outcomes. We should have access to all these statistics, but Leo Board prevents that, right? Delaware has the worst Leo Board laws in the nation. Not only is police disciplinary records not accessible to the public, but they're not accessible to anyone forever. There's no limit, there's no anything. And when there are alleged acts of misconduct, we have police investigating police, right? And being connected to the community, we think that's a big problem. There's no other government entity that is afforded this luxury. That's why we need Leo Board amended in a way that will allow effective civilian review boards. Effective civilian review boards would allow proper oversight, investigation, and subpoena authority to civilian review boards. It would be easy to use Wilmington as a model, as they've already passed the ordinance to create a civilian review board, but state Leo Board laws prevent it from having the proper authorities to be effective. We need somebody else looking into these incidents because things just aren't right. Since 2005, 57 people have been shot by the police. Out of that, 31 of them have died. RIP to all 31 of them families, and much love to those people, and much love to their families who had to endure that. Police are here to serve and protect us, and a person's life should not be on the line just because of an interaction with the police. And if it is, and it does go down that way, those policemen should be held accountable. The family should be able to know it's no reason. If Lyman Moses was accused of any type of violent act, his name would be in every headline and every publication. And now it's been close to 6 months, and this family doesn't even know the officers that were involved with taking the life of their family member. These are Leo Board laws, and if it's amended in a way where police disciplinary records are accessible to the public, and we can have civilian review boards with the proper authorities, we can begin to truly change policing here in Delaware, to hold police accountable when they're wrong. And we need to do this now. It's long overdue. And I'm asking our legislators to step up. You know, I just read an article that says Democratic legislators do plan to pass a Leo Board bill. And I seen the police disciplinary transparency, but I failed it to even mention anything about civilian review boards. The ACLU has drafted a bill for Leo Board that was presented to the Transparency and Accountability Subcommittee months ago. It has been presented to various legislators, including those within the Delaware Black Caucus. And we want to see police accountability, and we want to see it now. This is not a time for baby steps. I know time is running out and the pressure is on. We don't want to see a bill with a name on it that only gives us a little bit of bones with no meat. We want to see effective bills that is going to allow us to have police accountability and have police accountability now. That also includes use of force laws. We need to change the use of force policies here in Delaware. A cop should not have the right to shoot you and kill you just because he thinks that's what he should do right now. That's not right. And it seems like common sense, but in my opinion, our legislators is making it very, very complicated at this point. And we want to see Delaware police accountability now, this legislative session, like this month really, but we want to see it now. In addition to use of force, we also need body cameras on every cop across the state, and we need access to the footage. It's not a hard thing. Shout out to Matt Meyer for releasing the footage so we could at least observe and know what happened in that case. First time ever that an official even done that in Delaware, would think to do that in Delaware. So we got to start letting the police investigate the police, because they're not doing a good job of it. We need to end the abuse of use of force by police, and we need Delaware police accountability now. I'm now going to let Keandra Mcdowell speak and share with you her views on Delaware police accountability now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keandra Mcdowell. I am the sister of Jeremy McDowell, who was executed September 23rd, 2015 by Wilmington, Delaware's firing squad is what I call them. My brother was executed. He was murdered. It's definitely other things that could have took place that day to ensure that my brother would still be living today. It's still to this day that we don't even know what the officers look like who executed my brother. We know their names, but we do not know their faces. We don't know anything of them. Me and my family walk around terrified every day because we don't know if we have direct contact with these officers who executed my brother. Some are now off the force, but they're not off the force because of what took place with them executing my brother. They're off the force for other reasons. We have to get Leo Bohr out of here. Reform, and we just need to write it all over and figure something out, because at this current time, Leo Bohr does nothing but protect the police. That's it. I don't understand why is it so hard for us to see the misconduct of officers who are here to protect and serve us, who we pay to be able to do so. I think that, well, the only reason why the video came out as fast as it did in my brother's case is because we did not give the video over to the police. We immediately gave it over to any news source that was there that day. And that's the only reason why we, the people, were able to witness what took place that day. If my family would have gave the video over to the police, we would have never seen the video probably for 6-7 months down the line. I just think that Leo Bohr protects the police. I don't feel as though a police officer should be held at a higher pedestal than I or you. I just think that is ridiculous. And something has to be done. Just like Hanif said, we don't need it to happen in a few months. We need it now. Our lives are on the line right now. Yes, we've seen the guilty verdict yesterday. Rest in peace to George Floyd. But we have plenty of George Floyds here in the state of Delaware, plenty of them. And I took it as a form of disrespect by all of our city officials who made a press conference on how they felt about the George Floyd case, when we had things worse than that happen right here in Delaware with police executing our families. And not one time did they get up on TV and say anything as such as what they did in reference to the George Floyd, what happened to George Floyd. It's ridiculous. Still to this day, no one has came and knocked on our door and apologized for what happened to my brother. We never had somebody come knock on the door and said that they took his life. We never had that. Part of the lawsuit, because yes, me and my family did get a lawsuit for my brother being executed, was that part of the lawsuit was that me and my grandmother be involved with the de-escalation tactics that the police are supposed to use currently. And we haven't been in contact with Chief Tracy or nobody of such to find out anything that's going on as far as de-escalation. And that was part of the lawsuit. Leo Bohr has to go. I believe an officer should have to go through the same due process that I have to go through if I do something that is bad. He should have to go through the same process. There shouldn't be no secrecy in an officer's misconduct at all. I don't understand that. It should be made public. We should know who these officers are that are protecting and serving our communities. And that's what we should know.
Thanks, Keandra. Next up is Kobe Owens, who is a leader in the local NAACP and not just a protest. Take it away, Kobe.
Thank you so much to the ACLU for having me here today. And it seems as though there's been so much going on these last few days and these last few months when it comes to police reform. But I want to touch on what we all witnessed yesterday. Yesterday's verdict was a historic one and a huge win for the movement. But I view that as a step towards accountability, not justice. There is nothing that can be done to bring back George Floyd and give that family true justice of having their loved one again. It shouldn't take national protests to hold one officer accountable for their actions in court. It shouldn't be a global movement to bring awareness to police brutality in communities of colors that we see off camera every single day. The current criminal justice and policing systems in place cannot protect Black lives because they were never created to. That's why we must transform it from the ground up. And that starts by looking at the laws that are in place as of right now. I want to say this first to every single organizer, protester, activist, good troublemaker who took to the streets this summer. Your energy, your power, your word has helped us get to this point, but we have to keep pushing. And that's why I'm happy to be on this panel today and be at this press conference to talk about the need for reform here in Delaware. And when we're talking about this reform, it has to start with Leah Board. Leah Board is the Law Enforcement's Bill of Rights, and it's a law that codified workplace protections for police officers far beyond any other government employee. Whether it's certain waiting times to conduct interviews, allowing for records to be scrubbed, having and ensuring that other officers internally investigate them is what I view as wrong. One, as a police officer, you are supposed to be a beacon of hope and a beacon of safety for the community. You're supposed to be there to protect and serve everyone. And at the end of the day, you work for the people, just like any other public servant. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that. And we've seen Leah Board be used to protect these officers when they break the community's trust. And it's laws like this that has continued to erode the public's trust in the policing system. What we want to see and what we saw at the end of last year was Wilmington City Council passed a resolution to create a civilian review board. But a lot of people are upset because of Leah Board, those civilian review boards that are being set up or that have already been set up have no teeth, they have no power. And in order to do that, we must amend Leah Board in a way that removes the barriers that requires the investigation to be internal. It has to remove the provision and put in a provision that says that citizens, the people, can actually conduct these hearings. It has to remove language that law enforcement agencies exclusively conduct disciplinary hearings. What this does and what this movement is about is creating a community-empowered policing community. It's about building the trust back up within our own. It's about having true community safety. Again, I just want to say that yesterday, everyone felt relieved. But again, it's only one step towards accountability. Justice will be served when nobody else dies at the hands of police. Justice will be served when you actually change the laws that were written to protect murderers who wear badges. So that's why I'm happy to join with Hanif and the ACLU and Mike and Keandra as we take steps towards creating true reform here in Delaware. We cannot wait any longer. It has to get done this year. We've waited 2 months. We've waited for the task force. It has to get done now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe. And just to, again, add on, we are launching this campaign today for Delaware Police Accountability Now, and we and our partners are going to be engaging in a multitude of different ways where we're going to be working directly with legislators to urge them to move these laws forward. We're going to be continuing to work with the task force, as Hanif outlined to you. We and our partners are going to be out in the community, educating community partners and members and helping to organize people. The ACLU has also launched an action alert today for members of the public to take action on police accountability now, to email their legislators and urge them to take on these reforms to Leo Bore now before the legislature leaves June 30th of this year. With that, we're going to go ahead and open it up to any questions from any of the members of the media here. You can chat your question in the chat, or I believe you can also raise your hand and we will unmute you so that you can ask any questions that you have.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for answering our questions. I guess what I'm wondering is, we've been having this conversation for 10 months in the state, more than 10 months. And since the death of George Floyd, there have been protests, there have been public issue campaigns, there have been promises from officials, there have been efforts from, correct me if I'm wrong, but every single organization that is a part of this effort that this press conference is about. So I'm just wondering how this public issue campaign is going to be different than any other effort that has been happening over 10 months, despite officials not taking action on certain things such as Leo Bore. How is this going to be any different, and how is this going to expedite things or actually incite the change that you're looking for? Because you guys have been trying to get this done for, again, more than 10 months.
So Sarah, I'd like to answer your question. I think this effort is unique in two ways. I think one, the coalition partners and the agencies who are joining with us in Delaware Police Accountability Now all have a sense of urgency collectively to see something happen. I think that was displayed in a letter that was sent to Representative Cook and the members of the Delaware Black Caucus. As I recall, prior to that letter, the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force did not even have a meeting scheduled to discuss the subcommittee recommendations and or vote on them. Shortly after, approximately about a week after, then they announced the date to have a meeting. The second thing that makes this issues campaign unique than the ones you may have seen before, because we're not just protesting. This is a heads up that the community is coming together. We're going to be reaching out to Representative Cook so that constituents can talk to him directly and express their concerns. We're going to be reaching out in other districts, and the community's voice is truly going to be heard on police accountability now. Being the Smart Justice Campaign manager, it is organizing agencies and working with our coalition partners, but it has a lot to do with surveying the community and understand what the community wants to see from elected officials. And people are just telling me they're tired. They want to be in safe communities. They want to have positive, safe communications with law enforcement when necessary. But right now there's no trust, and there's actually a fear that's been instilled in the many Wilmington residents when it concerns WPD. So we're going to get the people's voice heard, and we are hoping that our legislators are going to do the right thing. And I think now would show what they're going to do.
And if I can just add briefly to that, Sarah, because I think it's a really important point, it is to recognize also the progress that we have made. Keep in mind, police reform has been something that has been discussed and talked about and promised for decades. We've had a Leo Bore on the books for many, many years, and a very extreme Leo Bore. And the fact that all of our organizations have been pushing for 10 months, I think has gotten us to the point where we are now. And we view this as a all hands on deck moment where all of our organizations are going to come together for the next 2.5 months and apply as much pressure as we possibly can, because we see this as a grave emergency that needs action now. We have come a long way in the discussions and getting to a place where we know what needs to be fixed. We need the legislature to follow through on their promises and get this passed before they leave on June 30th, 2021. Other questions from other reporters? Yes, Sarah, I see a follow-up question.
I do have a follow-up question. You know, I think Hanif mentioned this earlier, but the ACLU did submit a bill to lawmakers. The draft that I've seen would erase certain protections to officers during internal investigations, namely where the investigation would be conducted and who ultimately decides the outcome. I'm wondering if, you know, from what I've seen about the bill draft, it doesn't appear that there's any sponsors yet, but have Democratic lawmakers expressed interest in sponsoring the bill? Where is that bill in the legislative process?
Yes, we have had communications with legislators who express interest in sponsoring the bill. Of course, we have not seen anything introduced. I think the key factor is, though, I think a bill that the Democrats have been considering would allow police disciplinary records to be accessible to the public if passed, as introduced from the drafts that I've seen. But additionally, we also need in that Leo board bill effective civilian review boards to give them the authority for oversight. Oversight is important so that you have individuals involved in new policies and procedures that's going on within the department. Investigative authority to be able to have that in the case of alleged misconduct. And then subpoena power once that board does feel that our officer does need to come in and be questioned about alleged misconduct. So if that is not included in a bill that is passed this year, we will still be on hold and we will still be unable to have proper oversight to create the police accountability that we like to see now.
Thanks, Hanif. Sarah, any other follow-up questions?
I guess only like what lawmakers have, what you've been hearing from lawmakers about what you've been pushing for so far. I mean, I'm wondering what the temperature is from where you stand in the State House for these policies.
So from where I'm standing, I'm hearing that something's going to get done to affect police reform. I'm hearing the same thing that I was hearing at the press conference in June. So my question is when? I have not got a direct reply from that. And I look at the only reply is to introduce the bill and introduce the correct bill. Legislators have the language that's necessary. They've been consulted. They've heard the community concerns. So it's just time to move now. What I am hearing on the temperature is that these legislators are willing to go, but the pause has really been the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force. They really want to move in unison with Rep. Cook, to my understanding, and they really want to take heed to the recommendations of the task force. But that's all bureaucracy to me, because if you already got a draft bill and you know what you want to do, why are you waiting for the task force when you have access to the subcommittee recommendations and the task force is only going to have a conversation about that? So I feel like we have enough elected officials with legislative teams that should have been provided the information that could put out these bills now. Like, we want police accountability now, and we cannot move forward without this legislation. Another thing I've been hearing is that bills may be broken down into two parts. So we may see a bill introduced, but it is only giving us a portion of what is asked or what is necessary to create true reform. And then the second portion of the bill would possibly come out this year, maybe not. And that's just not good enough for the people. Why would that take 10 months? If we're getting portions of bills and we're getting the pieces that would be easy to get through legislation and the legislator, then we could have did that right after the press conference in June. If we were going to wait a year to find out what is best and how we could truly reform policing, and we now have access to that information, it is our legislators' duty and responsibility at this point to put out an effective bill. And that's why we've created this movement organizing with community leaders, organizations, and community activists and community residents all up and down the state. And we're going to just let everybody know that in Delaware, we want to see police accountability now.
Thank you so much.
Just to add on to that, Sarah, too, is that this goes to what I said about we've actually made progress in the last year from where we would have been, 2 or 5 years ago. I mean, police accountability and transparency issues have been brought up for many decades here in the state, and there's been very little progress. And so just in the last 10 months, I think we found that elected officials are more willing than ever to pass police reforms, and I think that's true down in Dover. We also found that very true with our work that we did here in Wilmington. Kobe mentioned earlier, the passage of the CCRB. We as the ACLU, along with Game Changers, did a Vote Smart Justice campaign last year during the primary, where we had a 10-point police reform platform that we formulated with our community partners, and we asked candidates what their positions were on it. And of the candidates who filled out the questionnaires and those who won their race, we had agreement among 92% of our 10-point police reform platform. And so we're seeing, I think, a time where more and more elected officials are open to these reforms, but we need the action to take place now. And that's why we're pushing for the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force to make their final recommendations and for the legislature to move as soon as they possibly can.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from other media here on this call today? All right, seeing none, we are going to thank you all for tuning in today here on this Zoom. If any reporters have any follow-up questions or anything else, feel free to follow up with any of us. Hanif, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just in closing, I wanted to say to anybody that's watching on Facebook Live, it'll be helpful for this Delaware Police Accountability Now movement if you contact your local legislator. If you don't know how to get it, or you don't know who that is, you could just Google General Assembly, and right on that homepage, it'll ask you for your zip code or what you need to provide to be able to identify your senator and your representative, right? And if that's too much work for you, you could do one that's real easy that I need everybody to do. Contact Representative Frank Cook and tell him we need to see police accountability legislation this session. Everybody watching, if you could do that for me, that'd be a great help to the Delaware Police Accountability Now movement. And you'll hear more from me and our coalition partners on how you can get more involved. And if you want to get involved right now, you can go to the ACLUDE website and find out ways that you can get involved as soon as tomorrow.
Thanks, Hanif. Again, we are calling on the legislature to make these changes before they break in 2021. We need your support as the public, so please take action today and stay tuned. Again, our coalition is going to be putting as much pressure as we possibly can for the next 2.5 months to get these reforms passed. This is an emergency. We need action now, and we will continue pushing for this so that our legislature meets the moment and makes the reforms that are necessary to build community and police trust and relationships, and so that we can have a policing system that actually works for everyone in our communities. Please, if you have any additional questions, feel free to contact Morgan on our communications team. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.